Hello, everyone. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well because today we're talking about music. We're talking about everything I picked up in the month of January 2024, and it was a good haul this month. Lots of great finds, thrifting, and at the record store. I got a lot of stuff kind of surrounding me at my desk here, so let's get into it. Let's start with a box set I found actually just yesterday. Just on my lunch break, went for a little thrifting trip as you do. And for $5, I found this box set here, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Carry It On. Now, this is from Rhino, 4 CDs and a bonus DVD. There's, live stuff, archival stuff, unreleased stuff. Now, I am into that sort of 60s folk revival, but it's certainly a genre I don't have that many kind of albums from the artists on. I know Peter, Paul, and Mary. I know a lot of their hits, and certainly they're part of a lot of the playlists that I listen to. But I'm thinking if I'm going to own something, you know, nice little booklet, tons of music, this is the way to go. So for $5, can't go wrong for $5. Let's do the vinyl next. I've kind of got this all categorized. So same thing. I've had some videos previously where I talk about 45s. I'm not necessarily a 45 collector, but when I see them out in the wild and it's something I'm a big fan of, I'll grab it. So actually we got George Michael Faith 45 here. So Faith is the A side, Hand to Mouth is the B side, which I believe was also actually on the album Faith proper. But Faith is a great song by George Michael. It's probably one of the best songs that uses that Bo Diddley beat, if you're familiar, dun, 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 tons of rock songs use that melody or that tempo, but it's a great song. Love it, love it, love it. So next up, yeah, continue on the vinyl. Gentle Giant Octopus. Here we are there. This is not the Roger Dean artwork cover, and it's not the die cut cover as well. But you do get their cool little logo there. Gentle Giant, one of those prog rock bands that are kind of difficult to get into because they're not doing extended long suites. Most of their songs are about the typical length of our typical rock song, 4.5 minutes or whatever. But the amount of complexity they put in there, it's not jazz, but it's really angular, and they're just covering so many different sounds and tracks on their music. It's you got to prepare yourself for it. So happy to find this album for a really good deal. Next up, another thrifting find. This is maybe inspired by Sam St. John and the Americana tag going around. This is John Denver, Back Home Again. Yeah, this is $1, I think. I found it in the bin and just happy to grab it. There's some great stuff on here. A lot of this I'd never heard. I've heard Annie's Song I'd heard, and Back Home Again I've heard. But Grandma's Feather Bed, that's a really fun song. I've enjoyed listening to that one. And Thank God I'm a Country Boy, that's a lot of fun too. Just a really, really good, just a great Americana album. And John Denver is one of those personalities that just makes you happy to kind of exist or to have existed in that same world where we get to have John Denver producing music. Just such a kind and welcoming soul, and that comes across in the music, and I love that. The final vinyl pickup for January 2024 is the debut Can't Buy a Thrill from none other than Steely Dan. Now this one is amazing. You got Do It Again. You got Midnight Cruiser. Only a Fool Would Say That. Reeling in the Years. Change the Guard. Turn That Heartbeat Over Against so many great hits from what would become yacht rock. At the time just would have been soft rock or jazz rock or something like that. But nope, this one here again. I think this was $5 at the record store. It was in their kind of discount bin, but it plays beautifully. And I just had to grab that. It was great, and happy to get some cool yacht rock on vinyl. All right, now we're getting into the CDs. I mean, the box set. Peter, Paul, and Mary was CDs, and these were almost all found while thrifting. And one of those things where someone with a very similar musical taste to you is moving or getting rid of their CDs for one reason or another. So there's a lot of good scores in here and a lot of good kind of chunks of discographies from artists. So a lot of this is stuff that I'm just kind of filling in the blanks of stuff maybe I used to have, or, I've listened to a million times, downloaded back in the day, but never had a physical copy. But happy to have this all now. So let's rearrange this one, put it in order. So I've talked about Goldfinger fairly recently. I covered one of their EPs. So now I've kind of repurchased their first 4 albums. So I have their debut right here, Goldfinger. This came out 96, is it? Yeah, 96. It's got most of their well-known hits on it. Mind's Eye, Here in Your Bedroom, King for a Day. I really like the song Answers. That's a good one. So then from there we go to Hang-Ups. Has their song Superman. So if you've played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, you're familiar with that one. A lot of other good songs on this one too. If Only is good. This Lonely Place. Question is good. I Need to Know. That's a good one too. Then we go to their third album, Stomping Grounds, which I really like. I think Hang-Ups might be the most representative kind of their discography, but Stomping Grounds just has a lot of the really good songs on it. I'm Down is really good. Counting the Days, I think, might be one of my favorite Goldfinger songs. It does have their cover of 99 Red Balloons, which is a great pop punk cover, but it's one of those songs you've just heard it so many times on playlists and things like that, and you're like, I don't really need to hear it again, but it's a fun cover. And then their fourth album, Open Your Eyes, which does have some good stuff on it. I like Spokesman, and the title track, Open Your Eyes, is good. For a lot of people, they kind of fell off on Goldfinger around this. This album's a little, I say heavier. It's not like a heavy album, but it is. There's not a lot of ska punk on here. There is pop punk. It's even a little harder than that. But I think as well, the band are quite outspoken vegans, and that comes across a lot on this album. In terms of, even in the liner notes, there's a lot of stuff about PETA and information about animal cruelty. And I think for a lot of fans, it just comes across as kind of preachy, as opposed to saying, this is part of who we are. But it is part of who they are. So it's one of those things where how do you put your war message across into your music in a way that might alienate people but might not. So I got those 4 albums, and then I grabbed 4 albums from, we're going to take a hard swing in the other direction. Again, some of these are albums I've had before, but now that I'm looking at it, so most of these were my dad's, when, not these actual ones, growing up. So now, I've got some copies here. So we're going to start with The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, not the debut, but certainly the one that kicks off a massive career that's still going on to this day. I don't know if I need to talk about the track listing on this one, but Blowing in the Wind, Don't Think Twice, Girl from North County, Masters of War, Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, Honey, Just One More Chance, I Shall Be, all of the Oxford. I'm basically just reading the entire track listing, but this is a fantastic album, and I can't say enough about it. Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited, another classic. I think generally I'll go for Bringing It All Back Home. A little over this one, though, but they're great companion albums. They go together hand in hand. But this one, Tombstone Blues, I like. That's probably one of my favorite Dylan songs. But you also have, Like a Rolling Stone, of course, Ballad of a Thin Man, Queen Jane Approximately, Desolation Row, hit after hit after hit. Then we're going still with Bob Dylan to Desire, one of those classics that I think people listen to. The Hurricane, rightfully so. That's a fantastic song, but there's so much more on here. Isis, One More Cup of Coffee, Romance in Durango. That's a great one too. And Black Diamond Bay, I like a lot. Just so many great tracks on this album. And now we're going modern Bob Dylan with Love and Theft, which is an album that I know existed, but never really listened to it until this month, more recently, and it's a lot of fun. I like this album a lot. This is a really enjoyable listen. There we go. 4 Goldfinger, 4 Bob Dylan. two, and then some other kind of whole fillers for artists that, you know, I've had these before, got rid of them for one reason or another, and happy to have them in the collection again. Ska Rockers, Real Big Fish, you know, one of the most well-loved, but also most well-hated ska punk bands of their time. This is their, I guess, technically third album, Why Do They Rock So Hard? Their first album is sort of a compilation of all of their demos put together, and then they had Turn the Radio Off, and then this one. I like this one more than Turn the Radio Off. It's much more consistent. I like the production a lot more. It's not my, it's probably my second favorite Real Big Fish album. But it's got some great songs. If you're going to listen to only a couple tracks, if you're watching this and you're not sure, try the song "The Kids Don't Like It" or "Down in Flames." That'll give you a really good idea of what this sounds like. Actually, just look at that cover. They sound like the cover on that one. And then this was a lot of fun. This is kind of a rarity of theirs. It's an EP called "Keep Your Receipt." So it wasn't even an enhanced CD, kind of came out before that. This is what, 97, 97. But there's kind of like MPEGs of some of their music videos and stuff like that. So it's 5 tracks. You have a couple versions that were from those demos, a couple tracks from their Turn the Radio Off album, and then one previously unreleased cover track. So you have Alternative Girl, Why Do All Girls Think They're Fat, I'm Cool, Suburban Rhythm, which is a lot of fun, and then their cover of Operations Ivy, Unity, which I like a lot. That's a really good cover as well. If you're from Canada and you're into the music, you know the Planet Smashers. This is their album Mighty, which has a lot of good tracks on it. Some people, this album in some ways is a little more mellow, but that's just because it starts with a mellower track than a lot of their other albums, and kind of the cover sound, or it looks, you know, like we're chilling, we're hanging out, but there's a lot of really good songs on here. Until the End, Never Gonna Drink Again is really good. Keep on Coming, I like a lot. I think Missionary's Downfall is my favorite one on this album. It has they borrow a horn line from Tequila. That's a lot of fun. Green Day just put out an album, but it's not this one. This is, I think, maybe their forgotten album. You know, it's sandwiched between Dookie and Nimrod, two really, really big albums for them. But Insomniac, it's a little darker. If you know, if we're going to do that, you know, is an album this band's such and such, you could call Insomniac Green Day's In Utero. It sounds a lot harsher, it's a lot more cynical, but I like it a lot. It's a fantastic album in their catalog. Next, an album from a band that I enjoy, but they definitely took a while to find their footing. But this is again the album that kind of put them out there. This is the Mad Caddies Deck and Cover. Ska punk again on Fat Records. This was what, 90, I think 96 or 97 as well. But they borrow a lot from, you know, Dixieland. They borrow a lot from, I don't want to say jazz. There's some jazz, but it's mostly that sort of Dixieland tempo, and sort of that New Orleans big brass feeling. And sometimes it works on here, but other times it just feels like, again, a band figuring it out, trying to figure out where all the pieces fit. That said, they've got some great tracks on here, like Road Rash, No Hope, I like a lot, and Monkeys and Popcorn. But again, it's a full album, and I'm only listing a couple of the tracks. There you go. Next up, a band. Actually, let's go here. Let's take a break from the ska punk. Let's take a break from the ska punk, and we'll go with these three. So this is a band I've been getting into more and more over the past year. This is Can and their album Future Days. This was not thrifting. This was actually, yes, this is not thrifting. This is at the record store for a really good deal. This album, listen to it a lot. It's still considered to be part of their classic period, but it's a lot more ambient. It's very unfocused in a way that takes a while to get into. It's almost like it's got if the music is the water and a genre, or like a typical song structure is the glass is missing. So we just have kind of the elements of what makes up music flowing around. It's a very cool listening experience. So there we go. Next is the debut from Canadian rock band The Arkells. This is their debut. I think it's their debut. I will be corrected by some folks down below. Jackson Square, named after the neighborhood where they hung around in. Again, this is fairly new to me. Never really listened to them a lot, but found this for $1. Can't say no. I like the song Deadlines. That's really good. And Oh, the Boss is Coming. That's been really good too. But it's just a band I'm starting to check out more and more. Happy to get that. Next up, this is a lot of fun. Ghost Reveries by Opeth. Again, a band whose catalog is so diverse. If you're into, death metal and extreme metal, check out their early catalog. If you're into, 70s progressive rock, check out their later catalog. And in the middle, you have kind of this album and a couple others where they're sort of hitting the two. You're getting cleaner soft vocals, you're getting a lot more complex kind of song structures and a lot of progressive rock elements, but then you also get those heavy guitars and fast drums and Cookie Monster vocals sometimes. But this is one of my favorite albums by them. I'd put it in my top three, certainly. Yeah, next let's go with these two. These two go together. A band whose discography is super short, so if I was going to go through it, I could. And they just are announcing a reunion tour. Tried a reunion tour 10 years ago, and they put out an album, I think 12 years ago. It's a terrible album, so whatever. This is No Doubt. We have not their debut, but the album where they hit it big. I think this is their third album, technically. They have a self-titled, and then they have the Beacon Street collection, which is a well-known one. This has all their big hits, radio hits, music video hits. So we have that. And then we have the follow-up there, Return of Saturn. And I've listened to these back to back a few times. And in my head, I thought I would like Tragic Kingdom more because I know as a band, the more they progressed, the more they got rid of their sort of ska rock roots and became more poppy. But I think actually they kind of found a perfect formula on this album. More so than Tragic Kingdom, which is kind of cool. But generally, Gwen Stefani is a very unique vocalist. I can only listen to her voice in kind of small spurts. It's very high register and warbly. Kind of take Geddy Lee from Rush, but maybe have them kind of go, up and down the octaves a little bit more. And that's sort of what you get here. And it works sometimes, but sometimes I have to take a break. And then the final this is so much music. The final new album that I picked up was The Offspring Splinter. I've listened to this a few times. It was an album that I'd never really listened to a lot, and I kind of know why. It's got some really good songs, and then it'll cut into something that was clearly meant to be like a radio hit, but it doesn't work just in the context of the album. But it's like, why? I get what you're trying to do, but why would you sandwich this song between like two very classic Offspring 70 tunes? I'm kind of slowly working my way through the Offspring discography because I've been able to kind of pick their albums up in bits and pieces as we go. Again, one of those bands where I listened to not even their first two albums, but like Smash and Ixnay on the Ombre and Americana, some of that period albums, and then dropped off. And this is one of those after the drop off albums. But actually their last album I heard on streaming, it was a lot of fun. So I kind of want to listen to more of that stuff. But there you have it. Some vinyl, a box set, lots of CDs, some new to me stuff, some old favorites fill it in the collection again. So that's what I picked up in January 2024. And I want you to tell me, I want to watch your videos about what you picked up, but also maybe in the comments, just say like a couple of the really cool things you picked up. And that's pretty exciting too. But there we go. That was a good video. Happy to be here. And I will catch you next time. Bye.